So welcome to this walkthrough of Mastery Exam AA Practice Version 2. All of these Practice Version 2 screencasts are going to have a lot less detail in them than Practice Version 1. We're going to do this just as if it were me sitting down taking the exam, and you're just going to be hearing the thoughts that I would be having in my head as I take them. If you want to see more of the details, more of the algebra background behind the work that we're doing here, go back and look at the similar problems from Practice Version 1 in the screencast where we go into a lot more detail, or just take notes on any questions you have and shoot them to your professor, and they will be happy to help you. So let's get underway here. We're going to calculate and simplify 3/5 plus 4/7. I know we have unlike denominators here, so the first thing I have to do is get common denominators. 5 and 7 do not have any factors in common, and so the common denominator is going to be 35, their product. Now I need to multiply the top and bottom of this by 7 to get that common denominator, and I need to multiply the top and bottom of this one, looks like by 5. So 3/5 turns into 21/35, and 4/7 turns into 20/35. And that gives me a 41/35. And I have to simplify completely, which means I need to make sure there's no common factors in the result that I can cancel out. But 41 is a prime number, and it only factors into 1 times 41, so there's no possibility of cancellation or simplifying the fraction. So my answer is 41/35, and I'm done. So now moving on to problem 2, I need to expand and completely simplify this product here. So I'm going to take x times all these things here, and it'll give me 3x cubed minus x squared plus 3x. Again, that's taking the x times this, times this, times this. And now I need to take the minus 5 and multiply through as well. That gives me a minus 15x squared. That's a negative times this. It gives me plus 5x. And then to here gives me minus 15. Now I just need to check for common factors. Let's see, there's a cube. There's my only x squared terms. Here's the x term. And then there's this. So now I can just combine like terms. I'm going to get 3x cubed. There's minus here, minus 15, minus 16x squared, plus 3x, plus 5x. That's plus 8x. Finally, minus 15. No other like terms, and I'm done. So now moving on to problem 3, I'm supposed to simplify completely this whole expression here. Here's where it pays to think a little bit. I could go in and figure out what all this stuff is, but I noticed that on the outside parentheses, the whole thing's supposed to be raised to the 0 power. Whenever I raise anything that isn't 0 to the 0 power, the answer is just 1. That's my answer. So I'm done there. Just for the sake of argument, though, let's think about what this is, because this could come up later. X squared to the 4th, I multiply the exponents together. That's x to the 8th, multiplied by that x to the 5th. And then same base, different exponents, multiplied together, I would add the exponents. But I'm still going to eventually be raising this to the 0 power, so the answer is still 1. And so that's my answer. So little moral of the story there is always going to look ahead and see if there's something that simplifies the whole problem before you settle in to do any major amounts of work. Okay, so let's move on to the next problem here. I'm going to simplify this fraction completely. You want to cancel, but before you cancel, we should factor. So I'm looking up here and I see a common factor of x on each term. So I'm going to begin by factoring that x off, and it leaves me with 1 minus x cubed as my remainder, and I have an x divided out. Now I have a factor of x on the top and the bottom, and I can divide those off, and my answer, what I'm left with, is 1 minus x cubed. Every problem on AA that falls in this position is exactly the same thing to do. You factor and then cancel. We're trying to trick you into just canceling off something like this. Don't take the bait. Factor, then cancel. Done. Moving on to the next problem, we're going to factor this trinomial completely. So this will factor into a product of two binomials, two-term expressions. First term in each piece is going to be x because they have to multiply together to give x squared. So I'm looking for two numbers whose product is -6 and whose sum is -1. I think I'm going to use 3 and 2 as my numbers. They certainly multiply to give me -6, and I need them to add together to give -1. So I need a -3 and a +2. I think that's my answer, but let me just really quickly check it out here. This is just a checking step I would do outside the blank here. Foiling this out first would give me x squared. Outer would give me 2x plus 2x. inner gives me minus 3x, last gives me minus 6, and combining the like terms, x squared minus x minus 6, which is what I wanted. So this right here is my answer. Check. Moving on to the next one. Okay, now moving on to this one, find all solutions to 2 minus 5x equals 10. So let's just rewrite this equation, 2 minus 5x equals 10. Now let's see, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. That gives me an 8 over here, and no 2 over here. And now I'm just simply going to divide off my negative 5. X equals negative 8 fifths. Okay, that should be my answer, but once again, I'm going to be careful and check this out. So if I put that negative 8 fifths back in, I get 2 minus 5 times negative 8 fifths. And let's see, what does that equal? Well, the 5's cancel, and I have 2 minus negative 8. That's 2 plus 8, which is 10, which is what it's supposed to be equal to. So I know that this really is the solution, and that's my answer. Okay, so we're getting close to the end here. We're now going to look at problem 7, where I'm finding all solutions to this equation. As we mentioned in the first, the practice version 1 screencast, the key thing here is to look at the left-hand side and factor it. So I see a common factor. I'm going to first copy down the equation just to have a clean slate here. See a common factor of x squared on this left-hand side. Factor it off, I get x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so that means that either x squared equals 0 or x minus 1 is 0. Okay, again, the algebra idea, concept here is that if I have two things multiplied together and they equal 0, the only way that can happen is for one or the other to equal 0. Now, if the first equation holds and x squared is 0, then that implies that x itself is 0. On the other hand, if this equation holds, that means that x equals 1. And those are my two solutions right there. Okay, and so I'm going to put 0 and 1 in my blank, and that's done. To be careful, I should go back and check. You can do that pretty quickly. I don't want to run out of time on the screencast, but put 0 in, and you'll get 0. Put 1 in, and you get 0 as well. But you don't get it by plugging things in. You get the solution by algebra. Okay, last problem on this mastery exam. Find all solutions to x squared plus 2x equals 8. Key thing here is to try to, what worked in problem 7 was having a right-hand side of the equation equaling 0, and we could factor and do stuff. So I'm going to do that here too. I'm just going to start by subtracting 8 from both sides. So that gives me a minus 8 on the left and a 0 on the right. So now I can apply the same concept that worked in problem 7, namely factor the left-hand side and see what happens. So first of all, if I factor this, this looks a lot like one of the earlier problems. If I'm going to factor this, it's going to split into two binomials with an x here and an x there. And I'll need two numbers to multiply together to give me negative 8 and add to give plus 2. Hunting around, and you'll see that you get x plus 4, x minus 2 should do it. Just a quick FOIL method check here. X times x is x squared, outer is negative 2x, inner is plus 4x, and then last is negative 8, and that does actually work. Okay, if this isn't the answer, though, I have to go and find the solutions to the equation. So if this equation is true, then either x plus 4 is 0 or x minus 2 is 0. All right, well, in the first case, that tells me that x equals negative 4. That's going to be one of my solutions. In the second case, that tells me x is plus 2, and that's going to be the other one. So I got 2 and negative 4. And that's my answer. And that will do it for exam AA. So again, this is pretty quick, and so this is more like what should be going through your brain at approximately that speed as you take this exam. If you have any questions about the details, about any of the steps, you can pause and rewind and watch again. Take some notes and then go to your professor with some questions, some well-posed questions, and you'll breeze through this in no time.